Hey, Razor, sorry to keep you waiting. Just reacting to the news here. What's going on?
Not much. I'm up celebrating Canada Day here in beautiful Ontario.
Lovely.
And going through the Bruins news. Obviously, hockey's all over right now here, so lots of action and none. But in all of that being said, you don't become owner of pro sports teams by buying low and selling high, or vice versa, I should say.
Yeah, buying high, selling low. Yeah,
doing that. The big boy, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he is letting her rip now.
Okay. Jeremy Jacobs and the Bruins letting it rip in free agency as well. Elias Lindholm, Zadorov also added. How do you feel about the moves?
Pretty expected. I think there was a lot of smoke around Lindholm for the last 3 months. Seemed to be a great fit, top center that was in free agency. I like the number. And then the Bruins probably had to reach a little bit on the term. It seemed, and rightly so, players love term at this time of year when they can get an extra year or two in their careers and on their contracts. They go for that. So really like the 775 number for Lindholm. I think he fits in well. I assume they've done a bunch of homework on how he fits in the top six and in the center role. And then Zadorov's just exactly what the Bruins need. We hear it every trade deadline: get bigger, get stronger. He's 6'6", 250, left shot on the back end, and he signs for 6 years as well, which is again probably one more year than the typical term or what everyone would love. But that's the price you kind of have to pay at this time of year, and it locks Lindholm, McAvoy, and Zadorov for the next 6 years. So the Bruins are pretty all set on the backside.
Razor, with Lindholm in particular, he had a nice postseason with Vancouver, but his numbers during the regular season, split between two different teams, were a little lower than they had been, and he's still only 29 years old. Where are you setting his expectations for his production on this team? I know it's very early, but what kind of ballpark range would you put him in?
Well, yeah, he needs to get more points than he did last season. So you can look at last year and say, okay, he was in a spot in Calgary where he knew he wasn't staying. So the first half of the year, didn't get anything, didn't have anyone to play with. Went to Vancouver. It took him a few weeks to get acclimated. He did have a good playoff go, and that's positive in the recent past. Looking at years back when he's actually had real good players to play with, he's produced. And when he was with Tkachuk and Gaudreau in Calgary, he moved that line, and he had the 42 goals. And so if I'm getting a number, if I get 70 points for him, 75 points from him on that line with, let's say, Zach and David Pastrnak, and he's moving the puck and he keeps those guys interested and makes them better players, then you're getting your money's worth here in the near term.
In the event that the next shoe to drop here, Razor, is that they sign Jeremy Swyman, that's not going to leave him with a lot of money to maneuver after that. Is this type of big, I don't want to say commitment, but it is for this team, is this type of big commitment of salary what they need in order to go forward? Or do you think they could have maybe gone a little bit more in the depth direction?
No, this is what they needed to do. You needed to go get a legit top six centerman or top two line centerman, and again, Lindholm was the best of those players, and they had to go out and get that player. They have to sign Jeremy Swyman. They'll still have a little bit of money left. There's a few more players I'm sure that will trickle through the organization here in the next couple of days, and they'll be able to build from that. But they certainly couldn't. They couldn't go the route of what looked like last season, where you're putting a bunch of pieces together and hoping. You had to go get one of the top free agents, and in the center position, that's what Elias Lindholm was.
Should the Bruins have been in on Stamkos?
I don't think the Bruins were on Stamkos' list. So, sure, you're in on a guy like Steven Stamkos, but Steven Stamkos wasn't coming to Boston.
Other news coming out today tied to the Bruins. Jake DeBrusk signs a 7-year deal with Vancouver. How would you categorize the long stint that he had here with the Bruins? How do you think we'll look back on it a few years from now?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting. I think as time goes on, you'll look at the playoff runs that Jake DeBrusk was part of and how he contributed in those, especially beating Toronto in all the rounds that he was a part of. He was a big part of it. I think I don't know if he'll ever lose the inconsistency mark here, or he'll ever lose the Bruce Cassidy relationships that he had. I guess I don't know if that will go away, but I think in the long term, 3-4 years from now, whenever Jake DeBrusk comes back into town, he's only going to do that once a year for the next 7 years by the looks of it. So we're not going to see a lot of Jake DeBrusk, and I think people will speak fondly of it over the next 4 or 5 years.
When do you think they're going to get Swayman done, and why does it never seem like this happens quickly with him?
Well, I think I don't. When does it get done? It gets done. At this point now, you have to believe they have a pretty good number in their head on both sides of kind of where they're at. They have to be kind of close number-wise. It could drag out another month or two in just the fact that there's no pressure. I think that Jeremy Swyman is in a position to really, force the hand, and his agent especially. Listen, the agents are the ones that are driving the bus now. Jeremy Swyman did his work in April and May. It's now the agent, and he's going to push real hard here because he can, and he knows it. So I think that's really the reason why it might drag out a little bit, is just because the agents and the lawyers are involved, and they're going to try and get every single dollar. But there's nothing that tells me or makes me think that we're not going to see Jeremy Swyman on October 10th against Montreal.
Okay. He's Andrew Raycroft. Check out his work on NESN. Razor, we'll talk to you down the line. Thanks so much.
You got it. Happy 4th, everybody.
All right. Andrew Raycroft. Happy 4th to you. Happy Canada Day.